How's it going, everybody? This is the Figuring It Out Finance podcast, show number 8, and my name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and I'll be your host. And I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, as my goal this year was to reread 10 books that I've read in the past, and number 1 is going to be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So instead of doing just a general book review like I've done for $1 Million Weekend or The Wealthy Barber, I figured I would, as I'm rereading it, as I go through each chapter, do kind of like a short dive as, you know, my brain is working through these problems, and I'll be able to tell you about where my mindset is with this and why some of these quotes stick out to me. So as I reread Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'd like to kind of do one of these on every single chapter and break it down and hopefully get you to be able to go read the book yourself because of how powerful this is and how long ago this was written, over 20 years ago. And he's talking about things that are happening right now that he saw while he was reading this book. So the main point, or the main starting point of this book, is Robert Kiyosaki introducing the book in his Rich and Poor Dad, saying just being able to understand the differences, because one was well educated, went to school, and then he never learned about his finances, and that would be his poor dad, because he makes a lot of money, but he doesn't know how to invest it. He's got bills and all these other things, trying to keeping up with the Joneses. But his rich dad was able to learn how to make money work for him and start his own businesses and then become really, really rich and teach these lessons that he's teaching today. So one of the main points in the start of the book is the subject of money is not taught at school. It's taught at home. So when we go to school, and this is targeting a lot of the college students or the high school students that are going to be listening to this, you're not learning about money at school. We did a little bit with the Dave Ramsey program, but the majority of things we're learning math and history and science, which is all good because you're getting such a broad view to see what you're interested in. But I can honestly tell you that I've never used chemistry in my life, and I probably should not have passed that class. But I'm able to learn about money, and I feel like through high school and college, I read 3 books on personal finance, and I felt like, why did I ever go to college when I should have been following these books? So having the subject of money not taught at school is a problem, and personal finance is going to be always a huge thing in life because, you know, people's education stops when they leave college or high school and go to work. And that's where you need to keep learning on the personal finance journey and figuring out where your money's going, why you need to invest. So the question of how can I afford it rather than I can't afford it. So this is another big talking point on Robert Kiyosaki, because saying I can't afford it shuts off your brain, whether it's that new car, new bag, new baseball bat, whatever. So when you say, oh, well, I can't afford that, it just shuts off the problem and it doesn't make your brain think. So reintroducing that, you say, well, how can I afford this? That gets your mind working, and then you're able to see those opportunities out in the world to be able to maybe make that little bit of extra money. Or this really applies to real estate for me, because I was at a meetup last night and I'm trying to put a deal together for a flip, so basically a flip is where you buy a house at a lower price and then you fix it up and then you sell it at a higher price. So last night and the past couple of days, as I'm putting together this offer on this flip, I'm thinking, all right, well, working with this hard money loan, they came back to me and said, you're going to be looking at about $20,000 coming out of your pocket. And I'm thinking, well, I don't quite have that. So how am I going to be able to put this together and offer that I don't have to be able to put that money out for. So that's getting that money, or that's the how can I afford it rather than I can't afford it. So some of those things that I've been working through is, well, I have the HELOC payment and I don't want to spend more than $8,000 to $10,000 out of that account. So I need to be able to adjust this offer to be able to see what happens. So the offer is currently out right now, but something when it's either denied or they come back with a counter offer, we'll be able to say, hey, we went 30 grand under your price. We'll come up 20 grand if you're able to pay 10,000 out of your pocket to help me towards closing. So that takes that me having to pay 20,000 out of my pocket to me only having to pay 8,000 to 10,000 out of my pocket. So that's being really creative, and going to that meetup last night was able to kind of get me thinking outside the box. But that's what how can I afford it makes me think. So one of the quotes Kiyosaki has in there is a Robert Frost quote. And this is, rereading it right now at the stage of my life is where I'm not working a job right now. I'm looking for a different one, or figuring out how to build a business to be able to, live the life I want to live, where I can travel and do these different things. This is one of the best quotes and best starts of the book that I can think of. So the quote that ends with, "Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference." So where I'm at in my life right now, I'm thinking, well, I could go get a bank job, get a really good salary, be able to buy one house per year, and then I'll be stuck in that job because I'll have to keep making money. Or I could do this flip. I could be able to make 30,000 off of it. So being at that crossroads of, do I want a full-time job to where it's going to lock me in and keep all of my creativity locked up in this job? And that's a really interesting thing to kind of go back and forth on right now for me. But being able to think about that in your life as you come to those big decisions or big money decisions, sometimes taking that risk is where you're going to make that difference in your life. And buying my first house and being able to go through that rehab process with all the headaches, I feel like that's made all the difference to be able to have the confidence to be able to, go after a flip and have that risk with the money, but a calculated risk. So getting into the lesson one of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, lesson one is the rich don't work for money. So this starts out with Kiyosaki and his friend Mike, who are wanting to make money. So what they do is they start asking their neighbors for old toothpaste tubes, which they were made out of a certain type of metal. And Robert and Mike tried making nickels out of melting them down. So that got shut down pretty quick, and they ended up asking Mike's dad, who would be Rich Dad, about learning how to make money. So the Rich Dad said, well, you can start working on Saturdays for 10 cents an hour. So 10 cents an hour for a little kid, or they were 9 years old at this point, that's not a lot even for back then. So in about the 60s, that's still not a lot. So Robert got pretty fed up after the 3 weeks, and then he said, well, I'm fed up. His dad, or Kiyosaki's dad, who would be his poor dad, said, go ask for a raise, and they were pretty upset. So he sat in line for an hour, and then finally got to talk to Mike's dad, who would be Rich Dad, and he was able to have a really, really good conversation, an eye-opening conversation that I'm going to read a page off of. Rich Dad said, life pushes us all around. Some people give up and others fight. A few learn the lesson and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. To these few people, it means they need and want to learn something. They learn and move on. Most quit, and a few, like you, fight. So what does this mean? So being able to be kicked around in life and be able to learn that lesson and move on. So in the way of making money, a lot of people are getting these jobs to where they're being paid a certain amount of money, and they work for a couple months and they say, okay, well, I've been doing this, I need a raise. Well, you could do that because of the fear of not having the job to be able to pay the bills, instead of going out on your own, figuring out how to make money work for you. So he's referencing a job there. And then on the next page, he says, the fear of losing was greater than the excitement of winning. Deep inside you, and only you will know you didn't go for it. You chose to play it safe. So this really hit me hard as I'm looking for these other jobs and looking for, this opportunity in the flip. It's like, well, here's the risk out in front of me. Choosing to play it safe would be going to a high-paying job and getting locked in the golden handcuffs, not being able to go out and do the things that I want to do. But this real estate side, that's a lot more attractive. It's going to be a little bit riskier, but that's, getting over that fear of losing. I'm at a point to where I say, well, what do I have to lose? I could go on this real estate side or get trapped in the job. And then getting back to the mental side, one of my favorite quotes in this book, I'm going to quote it a lot. It's easier to change yourself than everyone else. So how does that apply to your mindset? So everybody's pretty conditioned well out of getting out of grade school to high school to college. You're set on this schedule, and everybody's attuned to, okay, go to college, get a job, work till you're 65. And where all these other entrepreneurs who are making this large amount of money, they were able to kind of flip that script and do something different. So if you go to your friends and they're saying, well, my 401k, this, insurance, and you got to be able to change your mindset and think outside the box rather than just getting in line and doing what everybody else is doing. That's where those people are making that large amount of money. That's where that kid in high school bought his house, and now he's got 10 and was able to not have to work a job coming out of college. So changing your mindset yourself rather than going and trying to change everybody else's. So on page 38, he talks about this as well. He said, Rich Dad said, use your brain because a better job or paycheck will not solve the problem. So getting that raise isn't going to help you. Going to another job and getting paid higher isn't going to help that eventually in the long run. You need to be able to figure out how to invest and change your mindset to where you're the one making the money and you're not relying on that job to pay you. So most people go to college and that's where their education ends. So the lack of financial education is the problem. And where a lot of this is really hard to teach is that it's not going to be like a science book to where, hey, this happened and then this happened. It's all changing. You can't predict what's going to happen in the stock market, like what's happening just recently, or nobody is going to be able to predict COVID-19. But if you look over the past 30 years, where has the market gone? It's gone up. So you can bet on that. And that's where people look for the short term and think of it as a long-term solution. No, you need to be thinking about the long-term part of this. So back to the story, Robert and Mike eventually get convinced to go back and start working for free rather than 10 cents. So they do 3 more weeks of that. And then Robert, or Rich Dad, sat them down and said, all right, well, I'm going to make you an offer here. He started offering them crazy amounts of money to keep working. And then that's where it really clicked in the boys' heads where, oh, money isn't going to solve this. If I get paid a higher amount, I'm going to be working more, and that's not eventually going to solve the problem. So on page 48, he was able to just kind of keep going through and say, most people have a price, and they have a price because of human emotions named fear and greed. First, the fear of being without money motivates us to work hard, and then once we get that paycheck, greed and desire starts us thinking about all the wonderful things that money can buy. Then the pattern is set. And here's the pattern. The pattern of get up, go to work, pay bills, get up, go to work, pay bills, that's the pattern. So offering them more money, and then they can continue the cycle by increasing their spending. That's called the rat race. So the rat race is going to be talked a lot about throughout this book. So that's where it's introduced in the start. So the fear of not having money keeps you in a job. And then most people are reacting to their feelings and failing to think through everything, because the money isn't going to solve the problem. What they really want is that time freedom, whether it's time to pick up their kids or work on things that they want to. That money and getting offered more isn't going to solve that problem for you. So you need to be an observer to your emotions rather than a reactor, because not making money is a scary thing, but what do you want in life, and figuring out what you want in life is the main goal. So when it comes to college, people mostly recommend the college route out of fear because they don't want you to fail. So your parents want you to go to college, get a job, and live a great life. So college leads to the job, but the problem is your financial education or your education is ending after college. So you spent 4 years in college like I did, and I didn't learn really a single thing other than networking through college. Everything that I learned that I'm using now is from what I did on my own by reading and by going out and talking to people. So that's something you really got to think about, as it's a fear of not fitting in to life. So being able to be different is not going that college route. And then to spend your life living in fear, never exploring your dreams, is cruel. So that's another quote of the book. So don't live your life in fear. Go after your dreams, and that's something that I'm following right now. So it's pretty step in step with what I'm trying to do in my life. So I'm just going to keep going over some quotes here. Don't let money run your life by paying the bills, by doing all those certain things. And then one of my favorites is, we only memorize historical dates and names, not the lesson. So go back and remember all of those history classes that you took and think about all the names and the historical events that you can remember, and think about, were we ever taught the lesson in that class? By whatever historical event happened, we never really sat down and discussed the lesson of what we're learning. We're only talking about the historical dates and what happened, but what is the lesson there? That's a really, really interesting point. So moving on, prices go up because of greed and fear caused by ignorance. So what this means, and what Kiyosaki was talking about in the book, so inflation and why that's all happening today is because people are wanting to make more money. So, for example, the doctor wants to be able to make more money, take his kids on vacation, whatever, so he raises his prices. Then medicine has to raise their prices. And then food has to be able to keep up with that. So the prices all rise together. That's just a small example. So the greed and the greed of wanting to make more money and the fear of not making enough is caused the ignorance, which has led to all the inflation in the main scheme of things. And then one of the questions that I was thinking a lot in my last job is working at this the best solution to this problem? So what my job was sales, where I was starting to work long hours, and I could just kind of see it out in the distance of what my life was going to be looking like. And I said, well, this isn't going to solve my money problem because it's going to hurt me in everywhere else in my life. I'm not going to be able to go do the fun things I want to do. I'm going to be strapped to this job on my time. So that's not what I want in life. So, and that became really, really clear to me as that started to go on. So that's why having control of my time and maybe not making as much money as I want in life, that's okay with me, because time is going to be the most important thing to be able to start a family, start to travel. So being able to grow this business and get people to follow and start doing those same things, I would love to be able to help people get started on that, whether it's the vision, whether it's talking about money and getting your finances in order. That's where I really want to help people, because you need to start learning to see those opportunities, and that's what I have in my life right now. Is working harder at this the best solution to this problem? And that's something you really need to sit on. So I'm going to close it there. So that was the end of the first lesson in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And there's about 9 chapters, 8 or 9 chapters that I'll be kind of going through and talking for about 15 to 20 minutes. So keep tuning in, and I'll be able to post 1 or 2 chapters as I move through the book. And if you guys like this, I'll be able to do this with other books as well, as I'm starting to reread them. So keep tuning in. Check out figuringitoutfinance.com. Take those surveys about money. Tell me some books that you might want me to break down. So we'll see you on the next one.